Is it all right if we go ahead and get started? Great. Hi, everybody. My name is Greg Almeida. I have the privilege of moderating this discussion tonight. To those online and to those that are here in the building, welcome to the South County Health Community Forum. We're scheduled to be together until 7 o'clock tonight. So during the next couple of hours, you're going to hear from the board and executive leadership team members, and they're going to provide insight into recent changes at South County Health and the impact of those changes on our community. I just want you to know I'm a neutral third party. My job is to make sure that we start on time, end on time, and that we hear from you. And hearing from you is the most important part of my role tonight. Before we get into the Q&A and more information, I'd like for the Board of Trustees and South County Health officers to introduce themselves, and I'll start on my left.
My name is Dr. Kevin Charpentier. I am the Chief Medical Officer and Chief Quality Officer for South County Health.
My name is Noah Benedict. I am a Board of Trustee member.
Yeah, can you hear us back there?
My name is Noah Benedict. I am a Board of Trustee member. Yes.
Good evening. Can everybody hear me? Okay. My name is Aaron Robinson, and I'm the President and CEO of South County Health.
My name is Joseph Matthews, and I'm the board chair.
Good evening. Thank you for being here. My name is Anitra Galmore, and I am the Chief Operating Officer and Chief Nursing Officer for South County Health.
I am Jim Farrell. I serve as Vice Chair of the Board of Trustees.
My name is Tom Breen. I'm the Chief Financial Officer. And hello, everybody. I'm Peter Graves. I am the Chief of Emergency Medicine at South County and also the Vice President of the medical staff.
Thank you all for being here tonight. Can we also just acknowledge any other board or executive leadership team members by standing? So again, you know, my job is to make sure that as many people get heard tonight as possible. As you can see, we do have an agenda. And what I'm going to do at this point is ask a couple of the officers and the chair of the board to come up and make a few remarks. And we're going to start with Joe.
Good afternoon. I want to begin by saying that the Board of Trustees affirms its commitment to maintaining South County Health as Rhode Island's highest quality health system that is both accessible and sustainable. We support the volunteers, nurses, support staff, providers, and the management team that continue to deliver nationally recognized quality, patient experience, and patient safety performance, while also achieving board-directed objectives. These are remarkable achievements in a difficult environment for Rhode Island's only independent healthcare system. The board is also mindful of the stress generated within the system as we direct a plan to ensure the long-term viability of South County Health. Recent events have laid bare the need for the board, management, and providers to jointly problem solve for the benefit of all. The current healthcare reimbursement policies in this state require thoughtful and creative collaboration where appropriate. South County Health continues to explore partnership opportunities and service line alignment that locally deliver greater benefits to our neighbors in an accessible and sustainable manner. As tonight's forum suggests, the board has been engaged in a multifaceted approach involving members of the community, providers, government agencies, elected officials, and staff to share factual information, receive feedback, answer questions, and consider forward-looking suggestions that will make this community hospital, which is the best in the state, better. We look forward to a constructive conversation tonight, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Joe. Dr. Galmore?
Good evening, and thank you all for joining us tonight. It has been my absolute pleasure to serve in the capacity of Chief Operating Officer and Chief Nursing Officer for this great health system. In fact, when I received a call regarding the opportunity to join South County Health, one of the first things I did was search the history of the quality and service standards of the organization. Before financials and other typical indicators, because we all know that quality is dependent on the people serving. People, our greatest asset. We have a solid history of exceptional quality and service and much to be proud of. Our true north remains quality, and that has not wavered. We are committed to providing exceptional clinical quality, improving the health and well-being of this community, and our teams demonstrate unparalleled commitment to our mission and values. For me, this subject of quality or lack thereof is a personal one. As a young nurse working in a community hospital in which my mother also served as a nurse, my grandfather unfortunately contracted a hospital-acquired central line infection, resulting in an extended stay at a SNF facility. This avoidable injury had a lasting impact on me as a nurse, but mostly as a granddaughter. For weeks, he was separated from us during one of the most challenging times in our lives. We could never get that time back. I became an advocate for patient safety, preoccupied with failure to ensure process and procedures were put in place to mitigate the chance for avoidable harm to other patients, other granddaughters. And to date, as a nurse executive, my passion and advocacy for quality remains. So the journey to excellence is a personal one, and in collaboration with my CMO and this entire executive leadership team, we will continue to serve and lead with high standards. Why do I share this story? It's due to an open letter published questioning the system's quality standards, leadership and board governance, and our commitment to support resources to sustain a high reliability health system. These reports have resulted in significant distraction for the executive team, leadership, and staff. Over the past 7 weeks, we have been balancing the needs of our health system, our patients, and responding to the numerous messages requesting clarity, secondary to misinformation. In addition, we have undergone 2 formal investigations by 3 different governing bodies: CMS, the Department of Health, and the Joint Commission. We welcomed the survey and fully participated with the spirit of transparency. I'm pleased to report, yet again, that all 3 surveys resulted in no findings, and the allegations of the issues with governance were unsubstantiated, reaffirming our commitment to quality and safety. This slide is reflective of our most recent CMS data, published in August of this year. We were rated as an overall 5-star hospital from the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Service for Quality. Only 8.2% of hospitals nationwide receive 5-star rating. This information is all publicly reported and can be validated through the CMS website. We have also maintained a leapfrog hospital grade A rating. The rating clearly identifies that South County Health is performing better than average in relation to the hospitals represented here, which are the top 3 draws with regard to utilization in the service area. Scoring is based on several domains, including effective leadership and our commitment to error reduction and safety, nursing care, clinical training, communication with doctors and nurses, as well as responsiveness of our overall hospital staff. These measures simply do not align with the distressed organization. Our next slide represents the voice of our patients, and many of you in the audience tonight. South County Health has been awarded the Human Experience Guardian of Excellence Award. This puts us in the top 5% nationally for patient experience, reflective of over 80% of our patients on a scale of 1 to 10 score us a 9 or 10. When I round in the hospital, I often hear, "This is my hospital." There's a sense of ownership and loyalty from our patients and our staff. We do not take that lightly. And our home care service, so in the ambulatory world, have been awarded a 5-star rating in patient experience and 4 stars in quality. This is no small task in the home care setting. South County Health's home care is outperforming the 3 major non-for-profit home care organizations. Others in this area are either smaller or coming in as for-profit organizations. There are very dynamic circumstances when providing care in the home setting. The teams navigate through them as evident by their star ratings and their relentless pursuit of excellence. The world is very different than it was 5 to 10 years ago. And while there are many challenges ahead, our service has been maintained and improved in the home care setting. As a high reliability organization, we are also measured in the areas of achievement for safety, quality, and efficiency goals in a very complex environment. Following my presentation, you're going to hear from Tom Breen, our CFO, on that complexity and headwinds we face and have faced. However, despite those challenges and tough decisions we've had to make, we've managed to gain favorable value-based payments to the tune of $800,000 to the bottom line. That composite score was based on 20 different clinical indicators, I might add. So this slide is actually near and dear and personal to me. I understand there have been concerns voiced regarding the health system's turnover and culture. I'm not sure anyone would state that they have a perfect health system, but I will state that the narrative being portrayed regarding the culture is due to misinformation. We have an exceptional workforce. Our clinical indicators and our turnover data are aligned, both outperforming national and regional averages. Our bedside RN turnover is 14.8%, outperforming national averages by nearly 4%, which is not insignificant in this competitive market and climate, with wages being offered far surpassing our ability to compete. Health systems regionally have been noted to offer up to $30,000 sign-on bonus regionally to recruit bedside RN staff due to challenges in recruitment in the Rhode Island market, $30,000. And our overall voluntary turnover for all staff is at 16.6, also notably lower than the national averages. These data points are not immaterial. While focus has been on turnover in the media and other forums and the culture, the conversation should also be balanced with retention efforts. The inverse of turnover, the other side of the story, you may not get to hear. The reason staff actually stay and their commitment to serve at South County Health. We understand concern from patients in the community and those here tonight who may have lost their provider. There was an insightful op-ed published in the Providence Business News by Care New England CEO Dr. Mike Wagner, describing the crisis that primary care is facing in Rhode Island. I quote, "Primary care in Rhode Island is facing an immediate and unprecedented crisis, and the gravity of the situation is not entirely understood. Across the state, patients are struggling to find primary care providers as practices close, physicians retire, or leave the state." He then offers up some insight to fix it, addressing disparities, reimbursement that's competitive to our neighboring states. He goes on to talk about how there's been acquisition of practices and the shielding and the loss per provider in the primary care space. This is the floor, not the ceiling, of that loss that health systems are having to burden to ensure care and access to our community. Dr. Wagner describes the root cause of difficulties faced by the Rhode Island primary care physicians and proposed bold but real solutions at the state level to solve Rhode Island's crisis in primary care. These are the same issues we face at South County Health, which Tom will elaborate on. I want to personally thank all of you for the opportunity to share insight on our quality programs. We are grateful for the opportunity to serve you and your families, and looking forward to engaging in further dialogue and understand what's on the hearts and minds of the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Galmore. Tom Breen, please.
Hello, everybody. What I've been asked to do is give you a high-level overview of our financial performance and some of the pressures that we're under. I think you'll find that it's been quite challenging to deliver those kinds of results that Anitra is talking about, and hopefully you will have a better understanding of the pressure we're under to not only maintain our financial sustainability, but also deliver the quality that we've been delivering. So I'm going to do that by answering 3 questions. The first, what are the challenges to our financial performance? And are those challenges different from years past? The answer is yes, and I'll go into that. The next, how have we been doing? What's our bottom line look like? And I'll give you some historical perspective in our recent performance to look at. And what is our path forward for financial sustainability? How do we make sure that we're going to be okay, be around for the next 100 years, delivering the same quality that we've given for the previous 100 years? So what are the challenges that we face? Any discussion of hospital financial performance or the healthcare industry in Rhode Island has to include the concepts that we are paid less than what's being paid in Massachusetts and Connecticut. That is something that has to be filtered into every conversation, because every conversation, everything we do, has to be through the context of what we get paid in comparison to what others get paid not too far from us. What that has done has forced us to get into more of the physician world. And what that means is, if we're going to provide the expertise that we need, and we're going to provide it on a 24/7 basis, it's no longer going to come from the community. We're going to have to pay for it. And that's what's been happening, and we'll get into some of those specific numbers. But again, that's the concept that we really have to be clear on, is that hospitals now are taking the billing, the financial return on facility services, hospital services, and putting that into the support for the physician complement. Again, so we can maintain the expertise that we need, and we can maintain coverage 24/7. The last thing I want to talk about is orthopedics. It's a center of excellence. We have a great orthopedic program. We have a great partnership with Orthopedics Rhode Island. It's served us well for the past 10, 15 years, and we expect to be in this business in a superior way for the next 10 to 15 years. But it's changing. As a service line, it's changing, and how it's changing is that historically, joint replacement surgery was done on an inpatient basis. It's transitioned to an outpatient basis. So what that means is the amount we get paid per surgical procedure for a joint replacement is less than what it's been. It's good for patients. The service line has evolved. There's nothing wrong with that. But the reality that we face of less reimbursement per procedure is something that we have to consider. I'd also like to share just a quote that comes from the budget director from the state of Rhode Island. Because as I was reading it through the PBN, I said, boy, this is exactly us. And obviously, as I think you all know, the state's having their challenges just like we have challenges. And his quote was, agencies should instead focus on improved efficiency and cost effectiveness of their existing operations, including a review of outdated or underperforming activities. That's the word from the budget director of the state, and that's how we have been living for the past 5 years. Trying to, with the pressures that we're under that I just talked about, how do we make the budget work? And those are fairly large numbers for a small hospital, and I'll talk about that in a second. So, this is the numbers as it relates to how much are we putting of hospital reimbursement into the support of our physician team. Back in 2019, that number was about $15 million. In the 25 budget, that number will be about $26 million. So we've had about $11 million increase that we're putting to support our physician complement. There's no additional reimbursement associated with that, and we're not doing anything new. What we're doing is guaranteeing that we have the right expertise, and we have that expertise 24/7. But we have $11 million of additional cost that we didn't have only back in 2019. If you look at orthopedics, if you look at that graph to the left, what you see in 2019 is that 80% of the joint replacement procedures we did were on an inpatient basis. In other words, a higher level of reimbursement. If we go to 2024, that number is 20%. So it's a 60% differential in the way we get paid for the surgical procedures that we do. Again, orthopedic surgery is a great program and we're proud of it, but that's a fiscal reality we can't ignore. If you look at the revenue generated through the orthopedics program, in 19 it was $55 million top line revenue. Next year, going back to the end of 24, it's about $47 million, an $8 million decline, and we're budgeting another $5 million decline for next year. Those are the challenges that we're under. This is our operating margin. If you look back to 2010, we had about a decade, 11 years, of profitable performance. So going back to 2010 and bringing us all the way through 21, we were profitable. But the last 3 years, the last 2 years and what we're projecting for year-end 24, we've dropped down to a loss. And that's simply because we can't overcome those substantial impacts of additional money outlaid for physician coverage and for that decrease in orthopedic surgery. So we're now into losses. The good news is that the loss is a little bit less this past year. That's what we're projecting. We're projecting a little bit of improvement into next year. But it's hard work. It's constant effort to find efficiencies. The other thing I just wanted to point out, and this could be 3 slides. What do we do with those profits that we're making for 10 years? Well, we invest. We invest in a cancer center, we invest in radiation oncology, in emergency department, surgical services, robotic surgery, the list goes on and on. So when we do well, we're able to make those investments to give care to the community, the latest and greatest care that's available. And that's what we do. So we have to overcome this loss. Is South County in trouble? The answer is no. We have 136 days cash on hand. That means we have a fairly healthy balance sheet. It compares well to the other hospitals in Rhode Island. Our average age of plant, which is a financial measure of how, on average, all of our facilities are, is 15 years. We'd like that to be younger, but by comparison to Rhode Island, we're doing a little bit better. But at the end of the day, there is no replacing the fact that we have to get those 3 years of operational losses. We have to get it turned around. We have to generate a profit, or we won't be able to make those investments that we've made over those previous 10 years that I talked about. It's critically important. So what's the path forward? The path forward is that we have to take, as Anitra said, our true north and maintain it. We are known for quality and patient experience. That can't be touched. That has to be maintained. We have to, through advocacy, try to do something about that disparity between what we're paid and what hospitals in Massachusetts and Connecticut are paid. We have to do something about that. It's an imperative. And it's an imperative for all hospitals in Rhode Island. We have to grow patient volume. We want anybody who has a need that we can accommodate, we want them to stay here right in South County. That's good for them. It's good for us. We have to drive efficiency. Again, it's just something that we've been working on for so long and so hard, and sometimes it feels like we've hit bottom, but we have to keep pushing on. We also have to recognize that the pursuit of efficiency is not an event. It's not a one-time cost reduction. It's a way of existing and how you manage everything that you do. It's a process. It's an ongoing, forever process to always think of how can we do things better and how can we do things less costly. We have to seek out partnerships. Those partnerships can be in the form of a service line partnership, although that partnership could be in the category of a corporate partnership. We have to search for ways to get partners that can enhance our ability to maintain the services that we have in South County that we've had for 100 years. We need to maintain it. Partnership is a key variable in allowing us to reduce cost, enhance services, and again, maintain our financial sustainability. That's it.
Thank you, Tom.
Okay.
Thank you, Tom.
There you go.
So just a shout out and acknowledgement to Joe Matthews, Dr. Galmore, and Tom Breen. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you. So we are about to enter into the Q&A portion of our conversation tonight. I just want to talk a little bit about how we can work together around this conversation. And there's just some words that I just want to throw out there that I think will set the tone around how we can work together. So obviously we want to be open, we want to be respectful, we also want to be constructive and transparent. We know that there's a range of emotions on this topic, and we may not agree with everything that we hear, but it's important that we understand how we're going to work together tonight. The other word that I want to use is participation, and I just want to remind us that we've got some folks online who are not here, and we need to make sure that they're able to engage in this discussion as well. So we're going to do this in a couple of different ways. So I've got some questions that have already been submitted online that I'm going to put to the panel first. After those questions are done, there's only 4 of them, folks can begin to come to the mic and prepare to ask their questions. My colleague may bring me questions over from those folks that are online, so I don't want you to feel cut off if I get a question and someone just got through speaking and you're standing there. We just want to make sure that we get as much participation as possible. So, first question. Tom talked about this. He talked about partnership. And this is to whomever on the rostrum wants to take it. You talk about partnership. Can you please explain what partnership can mean to the community? And how does partnership differ from selling South County Hospital or merging it with another hospital system? Whoever wants to take that.
I'll take that question. Thank you.
Welcome.
There are two forms of partnership.
I think you might need to get closer to the mic. Can people hear him in the back? Okay. Yeah, sure. 100%.
Can you see me now? There are 2 things that the board explores when it comes to partnership. One is service lines, and one is should we merge with another healthcare organization. And this is something that the overall picture of healthcare merger has been going on for 20 years. It's always something that the board has considered in the past, and sometimes we've gotten close and it hasn't occurred. let's talk about the more practical and quicker approach, which is service line alignments, which is where I think our preference is as a board, because we're almost there, and we're working hard, and we'd like to keep local control if it makes sense. But there are some service lines that we lack the scale, we lack the size to be able to be efficient. And the best example of that is oncology. We fail to qualify for something called a 340B program. And as a result, we pay more for the drugs than we're reimbursed. That structural deficit last year was roughly $2 million. On a service line that lost $3.5 million. And so one of the things that we look for, is there a not-for-profit, preferably a not-for-profit, that we can align with, that they can bring their service down to our South County campus. We've been successful in doing that in cardiology, where we once had a cardiology program. The cardiologist moved to Care New England. And so now we provide the service through Care New England Cardiology. And that was a huge advance for us, because our cardiologists were all valve people. They were cardiologists, plumbers. But we didn't have any electrophysicists that could take care of any of the electrical issues like your heart, arrhythmia, thank you, it'll come to me. Arrhythmia. So now we have that ability. But most importantly, the Care New England Cardiology Group has a direct connection to Brigham. And so we have, as recently as in the last 30 days, when Aaron and I were rounding up in the East Greenwich Medical Office Building, we spoke to a cardiologist who actually had somebody in our hospital at South County that needed further, more advanced care and was directly shipped up to Brigham. Now, if we can find those kind of alliances in service lines, that would be what is preferred. And we have certain service lines that we are looking for that. The idea of having another healthcare system acquire or become the sole member of South County Health is one that takes a great deal of regulatory approval. And beyond all that, it's one of culture and it's one of fit. Are we aligned properly? And in this position, the board has been very clear that the only systems that we would look at would be not-for-profit systems. And so we have looked both at out-of-state and we've looked at in-state. The issue we've had with out-of-state, where there's been more initial interest, is that because of the reimbursement rates in Rhode Island, they lack the interest. It's just not something that makes a lot of sense for them. And the fact that we're only a $250 million operation. It takes as much work to acquire a $1.5 billion organization as it does a $250 million organization. And so when we look in-state, there is an issue of concentration of market. And so there you're talking to the Attorney General, and you're also talking federally at the FTC level. And so that has been a difficult road to hoe. And so that is where we stand right now. Do we look at aligning with service lines, or do we look at turning over the whole kit and caboodle to somebody else? That's where we're at. Thank you.
Thank you. So you mentioned the word culture, and culture means different things to different people. But I got a couple of questions that were submitted that actually address culture. And this is to any of you. Can you address the culture at South County Health from the perspective of medical staff and nursing and other staff as distinctive groups? Again, the question is, can you address the culture at South County Health from the perspective of medical staff and nursing and other staff as distinct groups?
This might be an opportunity. Tori, could you come up and introduce yourself and speak to that issue?
Sure.
You come up here.
Here. Thank you, Tori.
Hi, can you hear me? Yes. Hi, my name is Tori Groves. I'm the Administrative Director of Nursing Operations. I started at South County 16 years ago as a student intern. At that time, we didn't typically hire new grad RNs, so I went on to get some experience elsewhere and came back as soon as I could, a year and a half later. I have heard that some community members have referenced poor culture here, and I'm trying to understand that better. As long as I've been here, our culture is what sets us apart from other facilities. If you ask staff here why they stay, they tell you it's because of their teams. That has not changed. Dr. Galmore's information on turnover supports that. If you peel those numbers back further to account for bedside benefit-eligible RNs, we have top decile retention performance across the nation. So if our culture is unchanged, as myself and the other long-standing nurse leaders that are present can attest to, and it isn't our turnover, what might these rumors of low morale be about? Here's where I would like to separate morale and moral injury at South County from healthcare in general. Both PBS and Time Magazine have reported on the unprecedented increase in violence against healthcare staff. We are 5 times more likely to be victims of workplace violence. In addition, ongoing rude behavior and disparaging comments leads to moral injury and burnout. This includes having to continually defend the exceptional quality of care we provide. What used to only happen on rare occasions now happens daily. When I started, South County didn't have a designated code gray response team. We didn't need signage reminding patients and visitors that verbal and aggressive behavior wouldn't be tolerated. We didn't need a workplace safety committee. We do now. So what is our ask? Be patient, be kind, and assume good intentions. That's the biggest one. We are doing the best to care for our community and deliver on our mission. Additionally, I would like to point out the investment that our executive leadership team has made to leadership development at South County. That doesn't happen elsewhere. This was highlighted as a priority here to ensure that our leaders have the tools they need to support the bedside staff from continuing to provide exceptional care. They have been accessible, present, supportive, and receptive, and I appreciate their guidance. And that's what I just
Thank you very much for that, Tori. If you just joined online, I want to make sure that you know that the link to submit a question is in the description of our forum tonight. So again, if you just joined online, we just want to make sure that you know that. Last question to the group: how are executives at South County Hospital paid?
Jim, could you speak to that, please?
That's a very broad question. Say again? Well, direct deposit works too.
Wanted to make sure.
I think the question is really focused on the executive leadership. And for that purpose, we have an executive compensation committee. As vice chair of the board, I serve on that committee. The committee consists of the 4 officers of the board: the chair, the vice chair, the treasurer, and the secretary, plus 2 other trustees. The committee's work is driven by a policy that has been reviewed and approved by the Board of Trustees. We are advised in terms of compensation criteria by an independent consultant. The name of the firm is Pearl Meyer. They are a national compensation consultant. They aggregate data from all over the country, and then they slice and dice it into regional data and data for institutions of similar size and complexity and region. And we then focus on that data with our consultant, who attends the compensation committee meetings. It is data-driven. It is really data-driven. The policy statement is that the chief executive officer base compensation is targeted at the 50th percentile, that is the median of compensation for similar sized and like institutions, be they in our region or other regions across the country, but most importantly, primarily in our region in the Northeast. In terms of total compensation, the guideline and the policy says that the chief executive's compensation will land between the 60th and 75th percentile of the national data. Currently, that compensation is at the 55th percentile, or just slightly above median. So it's data-driven, it's based on national data, it's sliced and diced to make it regionally comparable, and that is what drives committee decisions in terms of compensation. We also get input on compensation for all the other officers in the executive leadership team, and so we know exactly where they stand in terms of the national data, and most are right around median. So that's the methodology. People say, well, I hear what you're paying your CEO and it's way too much. And I say, by what method of analysis did you come to that conclusion? I'm telling you that we have a method of analysis that drives us and guides us in getting to that proper conclusion for compensation.
Thank you for that. We're going to ask people who want to ask questions to begin to line up. But before you do that, I just want to find out, excuse me, I know that there have been a couple of these forums before and folks have had a chance to meet and engage in these forums, but also engage with the board and executives. Could you just raise your hand if you've engaged or asked questions before? So everybody here is new, right? That's great. That's phenomenal. Go ahead, please.
Well, I'm not new, I'm 71.
Well,
So,
that's young, though.
okay. Good evening to everybody. My name is Patricia Feely. I'm from Saunderstown, and my first memory of South County Hospital was driving down Route 1 when I was 6 years old with my father to get my foot stitched because I was digging quahogs with my feet. So we've had babies born there, we've had family all around, we've had a lot of experience with South County Hospital. So it was very painful to see some of the stuff that's going on right now. Since everybody's being so transparent, I'll be transparent. I have my master's in healthcare administration from George Washington University, a 2-year program on campus and a year residency required for all students at another hospital. We're matched like a medical student is matched. It's an excellent program. And I found myself tumbling into the market area, which was new. I was a planner by education, and I've always worked in hospitals since I was 18 years old until I retired. What's going on here now is something that is very confusing to me, because I was brought up and I was imbued not only through the educational process, but through my practice, that there were 4 key elements that we had to do as healthcare providers and those who manage our wonderful nurses, who I bow down to, and all of the ancillary personnel that we couldn't function without. The first is we were imbued with a sense that we had a duty to serve our patients. The second was we had a duty to serve our physicians, which sometimes to a manager is a little galling, but they're the ones who are the revenue producers if we get quite blunt about it. No test gets written without a clinician writing it. The third responsibility we have is to serve our employees completely, from the respiratory therapist to the woman or the man cleaning the floors. And our fifth responsibility or fourth responsibility, it's to the community at large, because they're the ones that, when are asked to donate, we donate. Are asked to pitch in. You have a remarkable set of volunteers at South County Hospital, absolutely remarkable. And actually, Mr. Matthews, I take umbrage at the fact in your video meeting that you said, please say thank you to people. Because when I walk in the middle of South County Hospital, there are like a million words being said, but mostly I hear thank you and you're welcome. So it's a perceptual problem that I think that as a management group, and by the way, I read all 139 pages of the Manette report and have a lot of problems with it.
So Patricia, can you mentioned something a minute ago that it just kind of blew me away. You mentioned the word confusing when you began
it's easy
talking.
to get confused in healthcare.
So is there a question
Yes.
that folks up here could clear up?
Yeah. I'd like to know if in your heart of hearts, and when you go to bed at night, and when you put your head on the pillow, can you say that you meet those 4 communities, that you have met their needs to the best of your ability as a human being, and B, as managers? Because I think if you ask around, that's where the rumor control is coming from. There has been no study, which I highly recommend, on consumer attitude versus behavior in this area. None.
So why don't we give the board and leadership a chance? Because that question, that's a deep question.
Yeah,
Can you sleep at night, right? Can you sleep at night with all that's going on? I think that, let's give them a chance to answer.
Sure.
First of all, thank you for your question, and we may tap you on your shoulder for your expertise moving forward. Okay, can you hear me now? See me? I was just saying thank you for your question, and appreciate your perspective and your insight as it relates to your expertise in these areas. I would say to your specific question on sleeping at night, that one's really challenging. So I think what keeps me up at night is some of the stuff that Tom was speaking about, some of the challenges that we face from a financial perspective, and how do you balance those financial challenges where the math doesn't work with what we commit to the community through our mission to be that most trusted health partner. Because when the costs of providing the care are going up significantly at a greater slope, which you know from your background, than the revenue that offsets that cost, how do you continue to provide the breadth and depth of services that we have historically provided? So that is what keeps me up at night. Relative to your question on the specific stakeholder groups, I feel like one is engagement. Engagement with the community, engagement with physicians, engagement with the nurses. And I would just say humbly that we can always do better as it relates to communication. I think Joe said in his opening comments that we have been introspective in terms of how we've gotten here. And would there have been opportunities for more regular venues of engagement where we do what Tom and Anitra did tonight, to say here are the headwinds that we're facing as an organization. We meet with the community once a year at our annual meeting. And over the last 2 years, we've been championing the issue of reimbursement in our state. You saw that it's not just South County that's sounding the alarm. Care New England, Lifespan, all of the health systems in Rhode Island are facing the same issue. And how does that relate to people? our ability to be sustainable, which the board has set forth as a requirement, is undermined by that under reimbursement that we face on a regular basis. Does that mean that we can't communicate better? Of course not. And again, we are committed to an ongoing dialogue with the community and with our physician partners. And from that perspective, I am comfortable that, that we've got a solid plan to continue that dialogue, not only with you, the community, with our providers, and with our staff on an ongoing basis. And so from that perspective, I feel good about the trajectory of where we're going. Do I feel good about the misinformation that's out there in the community and the fact that people have chosen to litigate their concerns in the media and in the public that causes unnecessary concern and anxiety in the community and moral harm to our patients, to our community members? No, I don't feel good about that. Our staff doesn't feel good about that when they have to explain that, yes, it's safe to come here. Look at the quality that we have. When surveyors from the Joint Commission, from the Rhode Island Department of Health, from the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, and you know better than anyone, those aren't easy customers, right? They're not, they're very objective and they're not easy customers. When they come in and tell our chief of quality that I can't believe how much better it is in here than what I'm hearing out there, you don't have an operational problem, you have a perception problem. And so as I said, we humbly are being introspective about how we can engage better to tell the story, give the context for decisions that have been made, and have an ongoing dialogue so we don't have to litigate this stuff in the media and cause unnecessary anxiety and worry to the residents of this community.
Patricia, I want to thank you for breaking the ice with that first question. You did a couple of things that I just want to acknowledge. One is you said who you were. Thank you for doing that. I appreciate it. You had a very succinct question that required an explanation. I want to thank you for that. And the other thing that I just wanted to say to folks that are going to be speaking is that we'd like to keep your question to about 1.5 minutes if possible, so that we can get as many people sharing as we can. Sir.
My name is Dr. Larry Grebstein. I'm a retired clinical psychologist, professor emeritus from University of Rhode Island, and I've been a volunteer in the Cancer Center for the last 11 years, working with cancer patients and their families. Much of what you've been addressed has not been what has triggered the problems in the community. I'd like to hear an answer to what I think has been one of the triggering incidents. The issue has been concern about lack of support for medical personnel, including nurses, medical technicians, and physicians. The specific triggering incident that started all of this was the recent resignation of 3 of the 4 oncologists at the Cancer Center who were not only respected, they were loved. 2 of the 3 of them are residents of the community, and all 3 of them had planned on spending their entire careers at South County Hospital. There has not been a candid explanation, and I've not talked with any of them, a candid explanation from anyone in the administration about what happened that these 3 people who love this hospital and were prepared to dedicate their lives to it left. And I would like, I think, a candid and not a PR cover-up explanation of that would go a long way to dealing with what's going on. And that raises the perception, whether inaccurate or not, no one questions the quality of care at hospital. I've been, I had life-saving surgery there. I was recently as a patient. No one ever questions the quality of care at the hospital. That's not the issue. No one questions the financial difficulties or how you're handling it. You're missing the point. What we are concerned about human concerns, starting with the change, in the wording, of the hospital's mission statement. So I think if you could provide us with some candid information about those issues, I think it would go a long way toward dealing with the problems that have been presented.
Thank you, Doctor.
Kevin, could you respond?
So, Dr. Grebstein, thank you for your question. The direct answer is Joe Matthews at the beginning talked a little bit about partnerships and particularly service line partnerships. Oncology is one of the areas that for over a year now we have been exploring different partnership opportunities and have brought the oncologists to the table to be part of those discussions. As we were looking, during the period of time when we were looking at different potential, I would say, in-state partners, Dr. Tabor, who was, as you know, the medical director of the oncology program, was introduced to a national for-profit organization called AON, the American Oncology Network. She asked the executive leadership team to vet them as a potential partner in the oncology service line, which we agreed to do. Over a period of, I would say, 4 to 6 months probably, Aaron, we met with AON a number of times together with Dr. Tabor, AON representatives, members of the oncology service line, and members of the executive leadership team. Ultimately, AON brought forward a proposal that had a number of concerns. If you look at how physicians in the United States and in the state of Rhode Island are employed today, what you would find is that if we look, let's go back 20 years ago first, 25 years ago, roughly 80% of physicians were in some type of private practice model where they worked for their own practice or a private practice. That has since switched. It's gone over the last 20 years that now 85+% of providers are employed by a hospital or a healthcare system. And the reason for that is the difficult financial challenges. Private practices, just by and large, with some exceptions, are not financially viable. So over the last couple of decades, they have turned to hospitals and health systems to shelter them from financial downside risk. And so that's sort of how we've come to form these large multi-specialty groups. The proposal from AON was, and I'll share a few details, I think in the spirit of transparency. What they said was, you're overstaffed in physicians, so line item number 1, we're going to decrease your physician FTEs. Line item number 2, you have too much support staff. We're going to reduce your support staff. Line item number 3, your cancer center's too big. We want to reduce it by 800 square feet to lower the overhead. Number 3, we're going to turn it into a private practice. We're going to guarantee ourselves a management fee through the contract so we make our profit regardless of what happens in the year. And the financial downside risk will go to the providers. So in a bad year, it'll come out of their pay at the end of the year. And in a good year, they'll make an upside. And in order for it to make sense, the hospital has to provide a subsidy, and we have to grow volume by 15% in the first year or it won't work. We viewed that as very risky. We viewed that as extremely risky. And it's a model that we know doesn't work. That's why these multi-specialty groups formed. That's why people left private practice. And it may work in selected markets where you have 340B, as you heard about tonight, and other mechanisms by which you can alter the revenue that supports those practices. But in the microeconomic environment of Rhode Island, with depressed revenues, without a 340B program, we know how that story ends. And that was the tipping point where it was very shortly after notifying Dr. Tabor of our decision not to move forward with Aon for those reasons that she provided notice. Dr. Danish resigned because he was recruited by Dr. Tabor and felt loyalty to her. And Dr. Smythe's explanation to me was that if they're going, I'm going. I don't want to be here without them. And that's what happened.
Please. I just want to make them aware.
You might stand up, Anitra.
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to add a point of clarity regarding nursing staff and support staff in the Cancer Center. So for clarity, there were no staffing reductions in the Cancer Center. I just want to be clear, because there's a provider staffing discussion, and then there's a discussion relative to support staff. There have been no reductions in support staff for the Cancer Center. In fact, year over year, we've actually increased FTEs per provider, and we added an additional nursing resource just this year. So I just wanted to make it clear that we have not reduced support services, and in the instance where we have had vacancies, we deployed resources across the organization to supplement, which is what we do when there's a vacancy anywhere. So I just want to bring clarity to that point.
Dr. Galmore, real quick, I'm going to get to you in just a second. We have a lot of acronyms and a lot of numbers. So could you just briefly tell folks what the 340B program is? You don't want to know that? Okay. I said briefly. I figured she could tell you in like 10 seconds, but okay, we'll
Thank you for the save, everyone.
we'll pass on that. We'll pass on that. Go ahead. Please say your name.
Yes. I'm Representative Carol Hagan McEntee. I represent South Kingstown and Narragansett. This will be my third meeting with you all, as you probably recall. We met in September, then we met October 3rd, and now here we are again today. Until today, I hadn't heard any response from everything that, especially the October 3rd meeting, which was approximately 40 people at that meeting, as you all recall, at the hospital. We had many doctors, we had staff, we had most of the board members. I think it was very informative, and going along with what the doctor just said, the issue that we heard there was that the doctors are leaving. It's not necessarily about money. The ones that are leaving to go to Connecticut and Massachusetts, you're probably right. But the ones that are staying in Rhode Island, the reimbursement rate is exactly the same as what you're getting down here. So the first I've heard that you're doing anything, and thank you, Joe, for the service line alliances. I think that's a good idea to go in that direction. It was good to hear about the financial report from Tom Breen. But the problem I'm having is I'm knocking on doors a lot these days, as you probably all know. And I'm hearing from everybody, I don't have faith in the care, of the quality of care that I can get at South County Hospital. My doctor has left, my cancer doctor has left, my heart doctor has left, my primary care doctor is no longer there. I can't find anybody. We all know that these doctors are what send the people to test for at your hospital. That's part of how you make your money, the tests and the surgeries. I mean, it's obvious, right? I understand the problem with the money and the reimbursement rates, so please don't think I don't. And we have a lot of work to do at the General Assembly, Aaron, and you know that, at the State House, to try and fix this, to bring all of New England, the goal should be, all of New England should be the same reimbursement rate. But I still don't, what we heard at that meeting is I'm not leaving because of the money. I'm leaving because of the management style, the lack of respect, and that's why the doctors were leaving. I have not heard that addressed, maybe a little bit now, but you got to stay with that issue because that's what the people believe. Their doctor's no longer there. They're not going to get their care. They don't want to have a new cancer doctor every time they walk in. They don't want a new kidney doctor every time. Well, I think the kidney doctor's still there, but there were a lot of doctors that have left, and that's what they're concerned with. And I am boots on the ground with these people every day these days. So please tell me, other than these alliances, what are you going to do to get us back to where we were? People in this community want to know their doctor. They don't want to have to meet a new doctor every time they go in. So please tell me.
Thank you, Carol.
What are you going to do?
Noah, could you speak to primary care?
So again, I'm Noah Benedict. I've been in healthcare for about 25 years. I'm the CEO of Rhode Island Primary Care, which is 160 primary care providers that we work in partnership with to deliver services. So this is near and dear to my heart, and a lot of what you hear happening here at South County, and our providers are dispersed all over the state. There are some in South County, they're in the northern end of Rhode Island. We're all over geographically. We're confronted with the same headwinds that South County is. And I grapple with this all day, which is an aging physician base that is sunsetting and not having an ability to replace them with an MD or a DO. And you've probably seen it in many practices across the state, depending upon who you interact with, but you see so many more NPs and you see so many more PAs because it's very difficult given how quickly this is happening to us. It is a crisis of how quick they are retiring and how difficult it is to backfill. So from the perspective of recruitment, I just think it's critical that we understand that this is a global issue. It's not just for the state or the community, it's actually nationally. And we're working diligently on trying to right-size it, not just through our own organizations and partnerships, but through legislative bills, and I'm sure you're familiar with them around loan repayment and how we attract providers to this state given such a low reimbursement. So I just wanted to speak to it from that perspective before I have the doc come up and talk a little bit more about the specificity for South County Hospital and some of their headwinds.
The question was about retention, not about recruitment.
Sure. So I'm going to address the question directly, Carol, but I do want to just talk about something that I had to spend time doing today, right? Tori talked about the fact that violence against healthcare workers is on the rise. It's actually exceeded police, right? So we are now, healthcare workers are now, I believe, the #1 recipients of healthcare or of workplace violence in the United States. So today, we had to deploy the state police to a provider's house because a member of our community, who was a patient of ours, was threatening the provider and called and said, "I'm outside this provider's house right now." Okay, there are a number of factors driving provider retention. 2 months ago, we had a family member in the OB suite threaten gun violence against the anesthesiologist. And when they were confronted about it, they doubled down on the threat. When I threatened him, he did what I told him, so yes, I did threaten him. Those are the realities of what's happening in our community hospital from people from our community that we are caring for. There are a number of things driving the challenge to physician retention. As Noah pointed out, and I can attest to this because I spent the majority of my career as a member of one of the largest provider groups in the state in Providence, this is in no way a South County health issue. This is unequivocally an issue in healthcare in general. The national trend today is that between 7 and 11% of your providers are expected on average to leave each year. That's a massive number. I started in healthcare in the late 1990s. We weren't anywhere as close to that number. At 10% per year, 50% of your providers by national average are expected to leave within 5 years. 50%. Those are the realities of what's happening in healthcare in general, and there's a lot of factors driving it. Money, violence, electronic medical records. There's a lot of factors driving it. In terms of what are we doing specifically, we have made a goal in FY25 that provider retention will be one of the key goals for the executive leadership team, including myself and including Aaron Robinson and others. We have initiated meetings with every provider group throughout the organization. I believe 4 of those have occurred to date: Primary Care, Express Care, the hospitalist group. It may just be the 3. The OB meeting is this upcoming Monday night. For the primary care physicians and APPs, within 1 week of that meeting, we instituted changes that they requested relative to efficiencies that they thought and suggested would support retention. We did that within a week of that meeting. We had our Express Care meeting last week. They suggested, the provider group suggested changes. We had a follow-up meeting today, and the executive leadership team will be reviewing the recommendations from that provider group tomorrow, and I suspect are likely to look favorably on those and move forward with them. So we are meeting with every single provider group. Many of those meetings have happened, and at least with 2 of the first 3 groups that we've met with, within 1 week, we have agreed to make changes that the providers have put forward that they thought would support retention. But it is important for everybody in this room to realize that there are a lot of challenges driving provider retention and the ability to recruit, and those are not specific or unique to South County and need to be part of the discussion.
And before we move on, thank you for that. Before we move on to the next person, I just want to remind folks that I did ask a question that if you had met with or had spoken at a prior meeting, that you give others who have not had a chance to speak directly to the group or at a forum to just allow others to ask questions. So please, I would ask for you to respect that. The other thing, 2 more things, is that we'd like to keep the questions down to 1.5 minutes because, as someone said a few minutes ago, we only have an hour left. And context is fine for your question. Please provide context, but statements, can we just hold on to those? So please, step up.
Thank you. And I will do my best to be brief. And I think that this should go on until all the answers or questions are answered. I think that this false end point of 1 more hour, when you took half an hour to open up, is not fair to the community. There's a lot of questions and a lot of pent-up energy, and I think it's important for you all to hear from all of us. So my question is, I'm a representative, Narragansett and South Kingstown. I represent the hospital that contains the area. I was the sponsor of the bill that the hospital put together. And I have tried to reach out to many of the board members. You're incredibly difficult to find. I reached out to Victoria Wicks. She responded. Barbara Wolf did not. Those were the only 2 for whom, other than Joe, who I spoke with a number of times, I only spoke to 1 person so far. So that's a little bit of background. The point that I wanted to make, and was not looking forward to making publicly, is that as the sponsor of the legislation, we have a House sponsor and a Senate sponsor. When the bill was presented on the Senate side, there was a sub-A, an amendment offered to the CEO. It was in the process of being drafted, and the chair of that committee was the one who wrote it, authorized it, and he said to me, and I've gotten numerous people to support this and to verify this, is that Aaron came back with the lobbyist, Wally, and said that it was not something that the hospital would support. This was an alternative to the legislation that had the opportunity to bring millions of dollars, potentially, back to the hospital.
Representative, what's
so
your question?
So my question is, I want to know if it was exclusively Aaron and the lobbyist who made that decision, or perhaps how many people who are on the board actually were made aware of that and had the opportunity to weigh in, or was that just Mr. Robinson unilaterally making that decision? Anyone else have knowledge of that? I'd rather not have Aaron speak right now. I'd like to see if there's anyone else in the room who had knowledge of that.
So everyone has a right to speak.
And I'm just wanted that moment to understand.
I get it. I do. Trust me. I'm a neutral third party.
I know, and I asked for a neutral third party to come in and to do that.
Well, you got one.
I know.
But we can't restrict transparency, we
That's-
can't restrict answers, right?
I'm not saying ever. I just wanted to give everyone on the board an opportunity. And I see no one saying that they had the opportunity to vote or vet that, and that it was unilaterally Mr. Robinson. So please.
So first of all, I would disagree with the assertion, and I'll stand up, thank you, that we were offered an alternative. There was a discussion between the chair of one of the Senate committees and our lobbyist about a brainstorming session about whether we could do something like Medicare did with the top 10 drugs as it relates to rate reimbursement. And our response was that that would be extraordinarily difficult, if not impossible, to adjudicate from a practicality perspective. And so it was never really offered as a legitimate alternative. It was a question about, could it be an alternative? And we responded honestly. I talked to Tom about it, said, hey, could we carry this out? And the answer was no.
The Hospital Association weighed in, and they backed it.
No, that's not true.
The people
That's
that
not
I
true.
have spoken to, with all
No.
due respect,
Representative,
were you at the meetings of the Hospital Association? Are you on the board?
No, I'm not. But
So,
I'm also the
I
sponsor
am.
and the one who
I'm the
negotiated
vice
in the
chair of the
building.
board.
Are you a legislator? Are you in the meetings that we have?
Representative, can I make a suggestion? Because this is 100% on point, what you're talking about.
It is, and we never get to answers.
However, it sounds like this might be better discussed one-on-one.
And I tried.
Or in a small group. Go ahead, sir. Please state your name if you don't mind. First name only is fine.
Dr. Chris Van Hemmelrich. I've been affiliated with South County Hospital for about 35 years now. I think most people in the room probably know me, have met me. I've served in various capacities as an internist in private practice and also as an emergency physician at South County Hospital. And now I'm back in primary care at a community health center here in Wakefield. And my question is, when I heard Dr. Grebstein speak, I thought, gee, I'm going to have to sit down after this because I thought he would have provoked or generated the answer to his question, and I think the elephant is still in the room. The issue is for me, and what's brought this to the fore, is the problem, the difficulty, the lack of communication, and the adversarial style that I've heard personally, not by hearsay. And I agree that there are a lot of things that can be propagated in social media and other formats where people may get the wrong vibe. But I've spoken personally to people on the medical staff, colleagues, physicians, and I'll bring by example one scenario which Dr. Charpentier referred to, the Care New England Cardiology Group. I think that was one of the first things that I saw change when I left the emergency department. And that was, it wasn't, to me, and from what I've heard from my colleagues, it wasn't an opportunity for the cardiology group to align themselves with a partner that could bring additional resources, but it was a clash of style, of culture, and personalities that propagated, that generated that. Those cardiologists are still practicing in their current location, but they were, what I heard was they were displaced from their location within the medical office building from the second floor to the basement. There were a lot of struggles dealing with a new EMR system that was, everybody had challenges with that, granted. And there were other things, and I think that the notion that these are for financial benefit, none of the physicians who have left, both the oncologists, the primary care physicians, the cardiologists, haven't fled to other states that reimburse at a higher rate. They're still here in Rhode Island. So to me, and what brings us here today, I think, is the personality issue, the adversarial relationships that I've heard, and those are the things that threaten the hospital.
So
There are
Dr.
financial issues, granted, and we all face them, all hospitals do. But this is the elephant in the room.
So doctor, what's your question?
The question was, can somebody on the board, and perhaps our CEO as well, speak to this culture of confrontation, adversarial relationship between medical staff and leadership?
Thank you, doctor.
Thank you for the question. So I'm going to take the first pass at trying to answer it, but it might be something that others join in and answer as well. There's different components of what you talked about, and I just want to address some of them. One, I've heard in things that have been written and published in various forums a lot about this move to the basement with the cardiologists. And I want to talk through the move to the basement. So first of all, I'll point out that that was a subject of the CMS and Joint Commission investigations, and so we toured them through that space. What hasn't been said is that the reason for moving them was patient-centric. We like to co-localize groups of providers that take care of similar patient populations. So the idea was creating a space where cardiology was co-located with the vascular surgery service, which was co-located with cardiac rehab, all in one space, so that patients who had appointments with each of those specialties could see them in the same area of the medical office building, as opposed to going from floor to floor to floor. And that's something we try to do. We recently just recruited a general surgeon who does breast surgery, and similarly, we co-located her in the cancer center because the majority of her patients will be cancer patients, so she's physically co-located with those cancer providers to give a better patient experience. It also hasn't been said that that space is one of the most beautiful and newly renovated spaces that we have in our medical office building. So I think those are important things to point out. As it relates specifically to your question on approach or attitude or whatever is the right word to use, when the cardiologist approached us, you know, one of the things they messaged us that there was a series of things they were looking to solve for. One of the biggest was a more modern EMR. And we said, great, we'll work with whoever you want to be employed by. What we care about is you stay in the community and continue to take care of patients at South County Hospital, and that's our true north. Whether you're employed by us or Lifespan or Yale or Care New England, that doesn't matter to us as long as we can keep you in the community and keep you here. And through that process, they engaged with discussion with all those groups. They talked with a number of different groups, including Yale, Brown, or Lifespan and Care New England, and ultimately landed on Care New England. But everybody they brought forward, we met with, we talked with, we entered into partnership discussions with, and again, we're just very consistent that our true north was keeping them in the community to care for our community. Who signed their paycheck was really less important. And so it really was not, I don't think, adversarial or antagonistic, and I think really it was an example of something that went remarkably well through the transition.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say that initially there were disagreements in terms of what the efficiency that Tom brought forward that we were looking for from a practice perspective. There were some initial disagreements about what the right level of productivity should be to create a sustainable practice. But once we heard that the cardiologists were, Tim Babineau at the time called me and said, hey, your cardiologists are talking to Lifespan, you know, you might want to have a conversation with them. I called up Neil Brandon at the time, who was the leader of the cardiology group, and we just said, listen, you know, the most important thing to us is that you stay in the community. And we want to work with you. We want to help in any way we can. And that means a smooth transition in patient records, which doesn't always happen when physicians change from one organization to the other. We offered to meet collaboratively with the physicians, and at the end of the day, the physicians got the medical record that they wanted. They got access to a much broader continuum, depth and breadth of cardiovascular subspecialists that Joe mentioned earlier. Cardiac surgery, electrophysiology, congestive heart failure specialists, all of the cardiac subspecialists that exist in a larger organization like Care New England or Lifespan, and they got a raise. And so it was a win-win from a community perspective. They got to keep serving the patients that they had always served. They got paid greater amounts. They got a better medical record, and ultimately, again, they were given the option to move back to their old space as opposed to staying in the lower level with the newly renovated space as a member of a new organization. When they were offered that opportunity, they elected to stay where they are. So they were given that opportunity. And I would just ask Dr. Graves, maybe he could speak to some of the concerns about ongoing style and interaction with the medical staff at large.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, sir.
So again, my name is Peter Graves. I'm the chief of the ER here. I've been here for about 5 years now almost. And I actually want to start by saying that I went to emergency medicine to help patients and solve problems and occasionally save a life, not because of my love for public speaking. But in any case, I do want to recognize all the physicians in the community that have raised their concerns. I hear you. I personally have not shared those experiences with the leadership team here, so I want to offer you my experience and my opinion and maybe answer some other questions as well. So in full transparency, I don't work for the hospital. I'm not employed by the hospital. I work for a third entity called Team Health. But we work very collaboratively with the hospital and with the hospital leadership team. So my very recent and very tangible example of what I have found to be a very collaborative working environment is that, like many physicians around the state, we felt that we were underpaid a little bit, especially compared to other emergency department physicians and other hospitals in the state. And over the last several months, we've been able to collaborate with Team Health and with Aaron and Anitra and others in the executive leadership team to do a market analysis in the state to try and get us up to par. Because I think we all recognize that emergency services are an absolutely essential part of our hospital and meeting our mission to the community. And I'm sure many people in this room have been in the ER, I hope with fairly positive experiences, given that it is an emergency department. But that became successful, and we were really excited to work with Aaron and Anitra and others to get us up to a market rate that we feel is competitive now. That's going to help us enormously with retention and recruitment, because quite frankly, it's been very challenging. We've had an open position for about a year now in the ER, and I can't recruit here because this is a lovely community. It's a beautiful beach. We're all wonderful people here, but that only goes so far. At the end of the day, it comes down to, you know, what can an ER physician make here compared to another hospital in the state, compared to another state altogether. So that's one of many examples I could share. I'm happy to go over others, but that's a very tangible one that's you know, quite current.
Go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you. Ann McDonald Wakefield. Can everybody hear me? Ann McDonald, Ann McDonald Tall from Wakefield. I am also a cardiology patient, and I want you to know that I'm very happy. I've been happy with the transition. It's possible I'm the only one in South County, although I doubt it. I want you to know that. The transition from my perspective was smooth. I just filled out a few papers for Care New England. So here's the question. You're exploring other service line mergers or whatever you call them. Which ones are you prioritizing? And also, now that you've aligned with Care New England, does that forestall any partnerships with Lifespan, or how does this work?
First, thank you. and good luck. Excuse me, and good luck. Everything's a one-off when it comes to service lines. And you have to have a dance partner. I would just say, in this moment, Lifespan or Brown Health is kind of busy. They're busy trying to merge Brown Physician Inc. with Lifespan Physician Group, and they've just acquired 2 hospitals in Massachusetts, which, remember, great reimbursement there, got to get the money back. So we look primarily to others, but we have to wait our turn. We have to have a program that makes sense. But the idea of the template of cardiology is one that we think we can replicate. But it all comes in due time. That's the best I can do.
Thank you for that. Sir?
Okay, hi. My name is Paul Selwyn. I live here in Narragansett. I don't have an agenda and I'm not running for office. So I do have a question though. I come out of the world of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, courtesy of Atlantic Records in New York City. And now my shirt says sex, drugs, and lobster rolls. So that's why I'm retired and I'm here, and I like to have fun. Dr. Bader is I had an issue. Now that I'm in my 70s, I've started to have issues. I never had surgery before in my life. I had a problem breathing, and the next thing I know, I was up to Kent County Hospital. I was a longtime member of that gym, and I really was upset when you closed after COVID. The gym didn't reopen, and the hot people moved in there. I think it was last week or the week before, my wife got a call saying that my appointment with Dr. Bader for next year, because I ended up going up, and I thought I was getting angioplasty, and Dr. Thomas was in a really good mood, and he put 4 stents in my heart, and because he said that way I won't have to come back again. He found other issues, and he'd just come back from a cruise, and I waited until he got back. And he told me, don't have a heart attack and don't lift anything, just stay home. And that's what I did. And he was in a really good mood that morning, and I feel great now. My question is, my wife got a call from Dr. Bader's office pushing my appointment for next year all the way to December. And which we were told the last time I was down there, I was told that they were having trouble. You know, he's getting overwhelmed. Apparently he's getting swamped down there. And my wife is now coming up, she's younger than I am, so she's getting ready for Medicare for next year, in January. And she's a retired New York City school teacher, and she can get Empire Blue Cross through the union. And she likes the hospital, she loves everything about it over there. And I'm debating whether I should go on that with her, leave Rhode Island Blue Cross and go on to Empire, because we get reimbursed through the union for whatever we pay out of pocket as far as our monthly, what the charge that Rhode Island Blue Cross charges me now. So I'm wondering, should I do that? Are you guys going to stabilize this place so that, I mean, you built that hospital, you took the gym out and you put that heart thing in there, but what are you going to do with it? Are you going to get more doctors in there, or are you going to do the procedures that they do at Kent County? We had to go to Warwick to get it done. You know, the surgeon, apparently that's the only place in southern Rhode Island that...
Thank you for that, Paul.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
First of all, I'd just like to say good luck with your recovery. Hope it goes well. And good luck, more to the point, with the Yankees.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, I yelled at the TV that Volpe was no Derek Jeter, and then all of a sudden, bam.
You avoided the sweep, but still a tough row to hoe. So.
Oh, I miss telling my late brothers, yeah, and the Red Sox are going to win the World Series.
Sorry, I couldn't help but take a swing at the Yankees. But to your specific question about, are we going to replace additional doctors? So I would say what happened with Care New England Cardiology is the same thing that happens with all physician recruitment and retention in the state. They had 2 physicians retire and 1 physician leave to go to Lifespan. And So Dr. Farrell, who's standing in line, he retired, and then Neil Brandon also retired. And they have struggled to replace those physicians, just like we struggle to replace physicians. As Kevin said, 33% of the physicians in the state are at or near retirement age. You got one of them in line now. And we are 47th out of 50 states in retaining physicians that graduate from medical education because of the reimbursement system in this state. So we lose more than we gain. But I will say, specifically to your question, I'm told, and we heard this on our rounding by Dr. Turpak, who's one of the new cardiologists that Care New England recruited, that they have 2 cardiologists on the way. So help is on the way, we hear from Care New England, but they have struggled just like everyone else struggles to recruit in the state.
Thank you for that. Ma'am? Ma'am, can you get in line if you don't mind? Okay.
Hi, my name is Karen Smith. I'm a long-time, since age 2, resident of the area. Long-time employee at the hospital from Candy Striper at age 15 for the next 30 years on and off, whether it was full-time or part-time. So even as though I don't work there anymore, I'm very concerned about what's in the community. I worked for a consulting company my last 10 years of my career. Again, as the other lady said, a master's in nursing administration and understanding trends and whatever. Worked nationwide and probably about 100 facilities in my career as a consultant. I know what you're dealing with is not just South County. I know it's not just Rhode Island. My point, though, and I want to jump on Chris's point, is the elephant in the room. And what I hear is just abysmal in terms of what sounds like toxic work environment. And I also know that through the consulting work we've done, that's easy to fix. It's cheap to fix, and it's fixable. People have said, do you think there's hope for South County to fix it? My answer always is yes. Perhaps, Mr. Robinson, you don't remember years ago when you were in the seat, a couple of years, and these things were starting to come up. I wrote you a letter and offered to come and talk to you about that. I never received an answer. I guess I didn't expect to. But being able to fix the culture, to fix the communication, I'm glad to hear that you are taking some steps from October 3rd. I was at that meeting, and I heard the passion of Dr. Tabor, the passion of Dr. Weisbord, and couldn't, I think, as a Board of Trustees and senior team, you couldn't miss the message. And if you did, I'm sorry that you did, because it was very, very clear. So my question is, what are you doing to fix that? It's easy. I'd be happy to come and talk to you. I have lots of solutions, and I'm not trying to sell you a product. I'm retired. But those are things that don't cost any money, that give extremely great benefit to the employees, to the patients that want to seek care there, to your physicians that want to practice medicine there, to make it an environment where they feel they can thrive.
Thank you for that.
Don't go far. Come back. Come back. Thank you.
Oh.
Thank you.
Yep. Welcome.
Let's have a conversation.
Okay.
You and I.
I'd be happy to.
Let's have a conversation, because you're prepared to help.
Okay.
And
I think everybody in here.
Yes? May I? Yeah. May I? You're prepared to help.
Mm-hmm.
And we need everyone to help. And this would be a great first step. So after this is over, let's meet at this chair.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can stay
Thank
late.
you.
I can stay late.
We might ask Dr. Seidler, if you would, come up and give you. Dr. Seidler, for those of you that don't know him, is our remaining oncologist in the cancer center, and he can speak to his experience as well, from a culture perspective, from an interaction perspective. So, Dr. Seidler, would you mind coming up?
I don't know if I need a microphone. Can everybody hear me?
I'm gonna let him in here.
I've worked in a lot of unpleasant environments, inner city hospitals, UMass Medical Center,
a lot of toxic outreach hospitals as part of UMass, but this is one of the most pleasant hospitals I've worked at. I was on medical leave for 4 months. I came back, the staffing actually had increased. Everyone couldn't be more pleasant, dedicated, and I had nothing to do with all the stuff this summer. It's sort of a perfect storm. They get slammed with all my patients, and then they try the Aon thing and all that. And just the one thing is, the 340B was created to keep rural hospitals in business for oncology and inner city hospitals. And you have to have 28% Medicaid, and we don't meet that metric. It's not something we apply or get, rejected from. The other thing I'd say is my second day back, JACO came and investigated us, specifically with chemotherapy safety. We passed with flying colors. And the staff are the same, the nurses are the same, the pharmacist is the same, and they really have a commitment to rebuilding. We have 3 locum tenens, 2 of which are committed to stay for a year. They're well trained. I like them. They're very nice people. So we're back there, but we're going to look to expand and hire 1 or 2 more full-time people. The other concept is co-management. We're embrace the idea if someone goes to Farber or Brown and gets a plan of care outlined, and then we'll follow it. We co-manage with them. So, but this is such a pleasant place. You don't know what a gem you have compared to other hospitals. I was an intern at Rhode Island Hospital 40 years ago, so.
Thank you for that, Doctor. Sure, 100%.
As a trustee, I think it's important to mention that, number one, we love the enthusiasm, the response for this meeting. We felt it was really important to hear from every single one of you. And as we heard the concerns coming in, what we decided to do is to start with outreach to hundreds of employees in every segment of the hospital to ensure that our saying is this, culture eats strategy for breakfast. If you don't have a healthy, vibrant culture, you're not going to move any programming or initiative. It doesn't happen. So when we start to hear that culture isn't healthy and strong and vibrant, it's time for the board to collect information from every single individual that we can, casting the widest net. And what I want to assure you is that we're preliminarily getting this data back in from all of these discussions, and we're doing it in a very measured, organized way. It's not willy-nilly where we're taking it in and looking at it and making assumptions. We're actually going to be able to compile it in discrete data and be able to report back to say, where are the pockets of opportunity for us to communicate better? Where are there areas in which people feel like they're not being heard? So we are just about coming to the end of that process and are really looking forward to discovering those areas in which, as a board, as an executive team, we could do a better job of communication and ensure that the community is having confidence in what we believe is a strong and healthy culture. I think based upon some of the feedback that you've gotten tonight, I really think that a lot of the misinformation out there, not just about the hospital's quality care, what we deliver, but also what's happening internally, is giving people a lot of anxiety. And I would have it as well, and as a board member, I do. But we're working towards compiling that data, and preliminarily, it does look good. And we're excited to be able to look at where those opportunities are and communicate even better and address people's needs at whatever level or segment of this organization they work.
Yeah. Ma'am, what question can we answer for you today?
I'll be very quick. Meg Richards, I moved to South Kingstown in 2018, partly to be closer to the beach, but also this very sweet hospital. I think my question is for you, Mr. Farrell. Was it you who spoke to compensation and how compensation is determined? Okay, I appreciate that it's data-driven, and then you said you sort of use a national metric and a New England metric. Is performance part of compensation?
Of course.
Can you elaborate?
Financial and other factors.
Of course. There are an array of performance metrics that go into the evaluation of the senior leadership of the hospital. Goals are set, they're discussed with the committee, they're approved by the committee, and they get baked in the cake. The goals primarily influence incentive compensation, which is in addition to base compensation. And at the end of the year, we get a report out on which metrics have been met, which have been exceeded, and which sometimes they fall short. And that goes into a formula that then derives the level of incentive compensation that has been earned, if you will, for the prior 12 months. So yes, performance is absolutely part of the evaluation, and that pertains not just to the Chief Executive Officer, but all of the executive leadership team. Maggie Thomas, our head of HR, is here. And what I didn't say before is that compensation is data-driven in terms of the non-executive staff of the hospital. Maggie gets tons of data that reinforces the decisions we make and the decisions that drive us in terms of compensation for our entire staff. So, did I answer your question sufficiently?
Is that true for the executives as well?
Yes.
Okay.
No, as I said, the executive leadership team. Everybody has goals, targets, and they are evaluated on whether they met those targets or not.
What questions can we answer for you, ma'am?
Thank you, sir. Hi, my name is Dr. Cynthia Middlemeyer. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist. Larry Grebstein was my professor 40 years ago. And after a very circuitous route, I ended up relocating to Narragansett primarily. However, I'm still based in Cambridge part-time, and I'm on the faculty at Harvard training child psychiatrist. And I was hoping to transfer my medical care down to South County Hospital. And so far, it's been kind of a rocky road. I had an appendicitis. I waited in the ER for about 7 hours. Once I got behind the doors, I had excellent care by Bert Capuano. My husband was rerouted to Yale, New Haven, no, not New Haven, Yale Westerly Hospital once. I was rerouted there because it was so crowded. I just would like to hear more about the ER, and I know that seems to be your business, and I'm glad to see you here tonight. And when I went to Yale, one of the things I learned, and it may have changed since I've been there, but my records at Yale tie into my records in Boston, and I don't know that that happens at South County Hospital, and that's really important, and it was very helpful. My husband had a TIA, and there was just this really amazing communication. So I'll stop there. I know you got lots of questions, but I just wondered if you could address that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm happy to take that. So thank you. First of all, I'm so sorry that you waited 7 hours in the ER. That's not what we strive for, of course. Lots to discuss here about some of the questions you raised. I think, like every ER, we have lots of challenges on a day-to-day basis because, of course, we can't control the number of patients that come in or when they come in or what issues they come in with. But we've been actually very successful at implementing a number of protocols in the ER and policies in the ER to help avoid that 7-hour wait that you described. So I'm not sure when that was. I hope not recently, but it does still happen from time to time. So one positive thing that happened statewide, which some folks might not be aware of, is that the state, at our and other hospitals' urging, has eliminated the practice of EMS diversion, which is where when one hospital is busy, they say, look, we're too busy, we can't take any more patients, all area ambulances, please go somewhere else. And as you can certainly understand, that's detrimental to patient care. It's detrimental to medical record transparency. It's detrimental to EMS services because they're taken out of their coverage area and then some other municipal service has to cover. So that went away this summer on a trial basis. And as I understand it, it's gone away permanently, at least for the foreseeable future. And so the situation in the past where we at South County would get overwhelmed with a lot of traffic coming from our north when Kent Hospital went on diversion has gone away. And this past summer, that in combination with some excellent collaboration with Anitra and Aaron, Alyssa Marciniak, the director of the emergency services, and Tori Groves, all of whom are here, we were able to implement some new policies and procedures in the ER and get better staffing in addition to having that EMS diversion go away. So an example of that staffing is that we were better able to align nursing hours and provider hours. We put a provider out in front of the ER to see patients right out in triage. We use nursing protocols that are chief complaint driven, so people that come in, even if there is a wait, get blood work done, get imaging ordered, get medications ordered, all based on their need at the time that they come. So all those initiatives together have led us to, I guess, enjoy a better summer in the ER in comparison to summers past, because this is a beautiful community, as you all know, and we do get a little overwhelmed in the summer with all the tourist traffic that comes in. And there are times, despite our best efforts, when we fall behind. We simply run out of space. But this summer was a lot better than summers past, and we had a left without being seen rate that was down around 1% for much of the summer, where in the past it's been 5, 6, 7%. So I hope that trend will continue. It's been a lot of work in the hospital and with hospital leadership to help those situations. On the subject of medical records, that's a problem, I agree. I would love if we were on Epic and could share Epic encounters here with those at Kent, with those at Yale, with those in Boston. We're not there yet, and I might defer to Aaron and others to speak about that. Did I answer your question okay? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Peter. I'll just address that real briefly. So when we talk about partnership at an organizational level, this is one of the strategic objectives that we would have, is to have access to a more modernized and integrated electronic health record. You mentioned that when you go to Yale, which is a $6 billion system, they're on Epic, and so they share records with others that are on Epic, and so that there's a free exchange of that information. Our inpatient medical record is Meditech client server. It's about 25 years old, and that's not a good thing. And for us to implement Epic as a system would be around $40 million. We would have to double our IT staff to support Epic. So we're simply just not at a size and scale to be able to implement a modernized electronic health record like you mentioned. But that would be one of the goals of partnership that we look to.
Ma'am?
Hi, I'm Karen Ramsey. Although originally north of the tower, I've been in the community for over 40 years. And I've listened to all that's been said tonight about service alignments, about management style, and about transparency. There's transparency, and then there's opaque. And unfortunately, my husband has several conditions that have given me close experience with oncology. He has the good kind of leukemia. And cardiologists, before and after they left. And they did leave. And what I was hearing from those doctors after they left was that they were being pressured to see more patients in the same amount of time. They couldn't adequately take care of those patients in the time allotted, and they left. When you spoke about the oncologist, you talked about this group that they were looking for to align with. I can't believe that they left because they felt that that was a good deal to cut back staff and cut back doctors. And from their own mouths, they were heartbroken to have left. They didn't want to leave. I am encouraged hearing the woman that spoke earlier and is going to meet with you later, because there's something rotten in Denmark, folks. There's just something rotten, and what are we going to do about it? That's my question. So I'm hopeful to hear what transpires and what comes out of this.
Thank you for that, ma'am. Sir, what question can we answer for you tonight?
Well, first of all, my name is Richard Casey. I've lived in this beautiful community since 1981, attended URI, part of the Boy Scout troops here of Troop 44. And I want to first thank South County Hospital. First of all, they saved my mom during COVID. So she's still alive today, and at 88, she's going strong. Unfortunately, my dad didn't make it. He was number 4 at South County Hospital, but they gave it a gallant try to save them. So Dr. Graves, thank you, and thank the staff, because we need this local hospital to be able to keep this community going, because I don't want to go to Providence to go to the hospital. Don't really want to go to Westerly. We have a hospital system here. I mean, I benefited from Dr. Bradley. During COVID, I tore my knee, and he fixed it, and I'm here today, and I can walk around. So my question is one of the key issues was driving efficiency at the hospital, and how can you bring more dollars in? And being in the pharmaceutical industry for 35 years, trying to be very solution-oriented, I guess my question is, what are your plans on how are you going to handle the aging infrastructure in the laboratory specifically, and bring more testing inside the house instead of sending it out to a reference lab where you can generate some funds? Because I look at when I get blood work done every 3 months, I see that they charge $335 and they get $35. That doesn't work. So the big issue, I guess, in Rhode Island is reimbursement, and we've talked about that a lot, so we need to change that as well. So that's my question.
So first of all, thank you for bringing forward a constructive question that seeks to improve things. Really appreciate that dialogue. And certainly we completely agree with you as it relates to lab services being an area of opportunity for growth. And as the board knows, we have invested significantly in our lab over the last year. One of the oldest pieces of equipment we had was our lab analyzer, our chemistry analyzers in our lab. And so we have upgraded those chemistry analyzers. They take about 6 months to validate, but we've also brought in what we call automation, which allows for quicker processing of labs. And then we've also partnered with an academic medical center through a collaboration called the National Lab Network, where we have access to academic level laboratories such as Stanford, Wisconsin Diagnostic Laboratory, and Tricor, where we would send to those as partners of South County, so we would keep that revenue in our partnership rather than send out to LabCorp or other organizations. So we're just in the implementation phases of that, but we couldn't agree more with you. Lab is one of the greatest access points that we have. Everybody gets labs on an ongoing basis, so that's something we're really investing heavily in.
Sir.
My name is Steve Farrell. I'm the founding cardiologist of South County Cardiology. I started the practice in 1987, and as you heard, I recently retired. I need to clarify some of the misconceptions that I keep hearing surfaced every time there's a public forum or private forum. We spoke with leadership for 2 years prior to making a decision to resign from South County Health as employees. We had 2 physicians who knew they would retire in the next few years, and I delayed my retirement for a year because I thought it was too burdensome for the practice of both Neil Brandon and I went out. We had an excellent physician assistant who left because she didn't like what was going on in South County and said it wasn't the same place I joined 6 years earlier. Her position was never posted. We were expected to do more and more with less resources. We explained if we had more techs, we could do more diagnostic testing. We could see more patients. We could do more with more resources. And we were told the numbers don't justify it. Make do with what you have. Work harder. So it drove us to seek other partners. Yale was interested in us. Yale wanted us to practice out of Westerly, which does not serve our patients well. They'd have to go to Westerly. They didn't care if we covered South County Hospital. Lifespan was a little more flexible, and Care New England was the entity that we chose. And all 3 of them said, why would your hospital want you guys to leave? Why would they drive you out? Why wouldn't they fight to retain you? Cardiology makes money for hospitals. It's one of the service lines that everybody embraces because it's one of the few things that still makes some money. So we joined Care New England. All of the diagnostic outpatient testing now goes to them. Unfortunately, a lot of the diagnostic catheterizations, invasive tests are being done increasingly at Kent. So we lost a lot of revenue. And my question, and basically once we joined, we were told we can go back upstairs. There was no reason to be down in the basement to begin with because we do not interact with vascular or cardiac rehab on a regular basis. That was just crazy that we had to be in the same location. Patients don't go from one office to another. But we were told we can go back upstairs, but when Care New England found out how much it was going to cost to renovate, and the fact that we would delay our employment start with them, that got nixed and we stayed in the basement. So my question is, Why would you let a cardiology service line at a hospital like South County, who already had those connections with the Brigham and Rhode Island Hospital, electrophysiology, South County Hospital did not broker those. Those brokered long before this whole thing came up. We didn't gain anything from the arrangement with Care New England that we brokered that we didn't already have. So the hospital keeps taking credit for this partnership, which we had a mutiny. We did not have a collaborative relationship. You know, the hospital did not help us secure employment with Care New England. So that's all a misconception. We did everything on ourselves, and Care New England agreed to have us stay at the hospital because we wanted to. We wanted to provide inpatient services, so we stayed in the place we are. Why did the hospital let us go? That's the question.
Yeah.
Why did they let cardiology go?
I think we got your question.
Thanks, Dr. Farrell. You know, I guess in some regards on elements, so some of this, in all fairness to folks that are not aware, Dr. Farrell is aware, I joined right around the time that this was happening. So some of this predated my time on the executive leadership team, and some of it happened post. You know, I think I would say, you know, we may have to agree to disagree on certain elements, right? And certainly during my time there, early on there was some trust that needed to be built between the executive leadership team and the cardiologist, but we worked for months, hundreds of man-hours on meeting with all the potential partners, talking about structure, talking about transfer of electronic medical records to make it seamless both for the patients and the cardiologists, talking about maintaining deployment. And so to say that the deal was entirely brokered outside of the executive leadership team, I just think we're going to have to agree to disagree on that point. I think
Work out the transition details, but the decision had already been made.
I think that's fair.
We didn't want to inconvenience the patients, nor did we, by having medical records and other things be an obstacle.
Yeah,
so that was your cleanup after our decision.
I think that's fair, but I will say that we did go back to the cardiology group and say, hey, is there a path to retain you before any contracts were signed?
No.
Well,
That
Steve,
did
we did. Now, whether or not your partners communicated that to you or not, I mean, that is a fact. That is not, that's a fact.
Who did you speak to?
John Murphy.
Okay.
Several times, and offered a variety of different options. Maintaining employment, standing you all up in a private practice, that we would find ways that were legally compliant that we could try to support. We offered that multiple times in meetings with two of your partners, and we're told that the group wasn't at a point where they wanted to have those discussions, and we worked towards the transition. So multiple attempts were made during my tenure to create possible pathways to maintain the employment. At the end of the day, you know, one of our core values is partnership. I think the old C word in healthcare used to be competition. The current C word is cooperation. You know, our true north was keeping the group deployed in the community to make sure that you would continue to provide services to the community and to the hospital. And I think, you know, while maybe it didn't start in a place of partnership, I think ultimately through the transition we got there. And, you know, at the end of the day, we do consider it a success, right? Your partners, I know you've retired, your partners continue to provide care in the same physical location that they did before, caring for the same patients that they did before, in the same hospital that they did before. And it has been a successful now partnership. And so I think on some of the elements, we just have to agree to disagree. And I do agree with you that it started in a more negative place, but I think it, you know, certainly a few months after my arrival and again, once a little bit of trust was regained, there was months and months and months and months of transition work that this team worked on in partnership with both the group and the potential partners, including C&E.
So this sounds like a conversation, excuse me, that is important and requires additional clarification. But we have three people that have been standing there for a while that I'm sure we'd like to hear from before we end our time together. Ma'am, what's your question?
My name is Deborah Colvin. I've lived in Narragansett over 70 years. I was born at South County Hospital, and I spent half of my career, in fact more than that, 35 years working as a nursing coordinator for the South County Hospital. I've also been on the board for 25 years. And my question is, I've gone through 5 administrations. We had an administration in the late 90s where this overtone of a hostile work environment prevailed. It was predominantly aimed at the CEO and the CNO. And the hospital felt it was so important, they got Supreme Court Justice Williams to come down and mediate, because he felt also that there was a little conflict with the Board of Trustees and this particular CEO. And that came to a very good fruition for both parties. And there's a lot of this he said, she said, you know, it's an adversary, no it's not. And has the hospital considered getting a third independent party that is respected in the state of Rhode Island, such as a Supreme Court Justice?
Thank you for the question. No, we have not.
And why haven't you?
I'd like to answer as well, because, you know, again, we take very seriously the concern from the community. I'm a community member as well. And we've got to be fact-based and data-driven. And so, again, casting the wide net and talking at this point to hundreds of employees, we have not gotten the feedback you have seen tonight as well with the physician leadership. We have not gotten that feedback that it is a hostile environment in which we would need to take that action. And if we did get the returns from the data that we asked for, that in any way, shape, or form, that's what people were enduring, we would consider something along those lines. But it's clearly not what the case is. We've got to be fact-based and data-driven on this, and I can tell you as a Board of Trustee that that is not happening.
Only 2 people from the Board of Trustees answered a letter from me. I find that very discouraging. I used to know every single board person on a first-name basis.
Ma'am, thank you so much. At the beginning of this, I promised to get us out of here on time. We have 4 people in line. I want to honor the fact that you've been standing in line and waiting to ask a question. I'm sorry. Ma'am, please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Jerry Masacci, and my question is for Joe Matthews. I've been a volunteer at South County Health for the past 16 years, and in that capacity, I interact almost on a daily basis with the patients and their families. And I can tell you that on an ongoing basis, I hear constantly what a wonderful hospital this is, where they have never been to a hospital like South County Health, and how they feel when they come in, from the moment they come in, that everyone truly cares about them. And I also can tell you I interact with the workers at the hospital, staff, and I see how hard they work, the passion they bring to their jobs, and their commitment to excellence. And I know the commitment for excellence starts at the top. Because I watched the town hall meeting, I learned, Joe said, that when Aaron Robinson was hired, he was given a directive to make changes. And I'm sure that was because the board felt that we needed to make changes in order to ensure financial viability for now and going forward. My question to you, Joe, is we all know that change is difficult. It's hard. It's not well received. My question to you, Joe, is given the current negative publicity we're getting and everything, what would you change based upon, what has happened?
So first, Jerry, thank you for your service.
You're welcome.
If we had to do it all over again, this has been a topic of discussion at the board for the last 6 months. If we had to do it again, one of the things we're exploring. Right now, at a hospital level, we have something called the Joint Committee. The Joint Committee essentially is, we'll just say the CEO, the CM, Chief Medical Officer, Chief Operating Officer. It's the leadership of the Medical Executive Committee, and it's members of the board. And typically that group gets together when there's become a quality issue, something called a sentinel event, which has to be reported to the Rhode Island Department of Health. And what we do is 3 parties come together to discuss, to examine what happened, and then what can we do to make sure this doesn't happen again. That's the idea. It's interesting to watch because physicians have been delegated authority for health care in South County Health by the board. Management has been delegated responsibility to run the operations by the board. One thing that the board does not delegate is the responsibility to maintain a high-performing community health system. And so when you have these 2 parties getting together and you have a trustee present, you'd be surprised how there's usually some initial posturing and perspectives. And then with a trustee there to say, so what's in the best interest of the patient? What's in the best interest of the community? You'd be surprised how we start to coalesce to solutions. We do that at the hospital level. We've never done it at the service line level. So the conversations about cardiology, the conversations about oncology, that was left to the physician leadership in the management team to sort out. The position of the board was, we are looking at the numbers, we have to maintain quality, that's number 1, and we gotta find a way to be financially sustainable. Go do it. On a going forward basis, what we are discussing at the board level is to take this model that we use at the hospital level and start applying it at the service line level. Would things have changed in cardiology if we agreed to disagree and there was a third party there? It's too late to know. The same is true in oncology. It's too late to know. But it's time to act. And Jerry, to your question, if there's something that we would do different in this time of change, it's for the board to become involved, not to meddle in what the right health decisions are, not to meddle in how to solve that problem from a management perspective, but to be an advocate for the community. And I assure you, we will work better at that.
Thank you. Just a housekeeping piece. After the gentleman in the black polo, I think it's black, I can't really tell. People tell me I'm colorblind, but it's black or blue. We're gonna have to end our time together. Ma'am, did you have a question? No, ma'am, after the man in the black polo, we're gonna have to end our time together, I'm sorry. Go ahead, ma'am, did you have a question?
Yes, I do. My name is Masha Fogarty. I have certainly want to express the appreciation that I have for the staff at South County Hospital, whether it be the hospitalists, the dietitians, the x-ray, the nurses. It's been a wonderful experience. My concern is this. I'm one of the patients affected by the departure of primary care physicians. I received a letter in August stating that they would reach out and call each of this physician's patients. To date, I have not heard from one person regarding this change. At this point in time, with Medicare changes, health insurance changes, it is now time to name a primary care physician. I feel like I'm left in the lurch. What's being done to address patients like me?
So thank you for your question, Marcia, and sorry that there's been a delay in somebody reaching out to you. We are doing a number of things to address the shortage in primary care. One of them is we're working in partnership with Rhode Island Primary Care Physicians Corporation. In addition to being on the board of directors, Noah Benedict is president and CEO of that organization. They have a number of practices throughout the state, some of which are accepting new patients. We recently got a list of those RIPIC practices that are taking new patients, and we've been distributing them to our ED providers and our primary care team and others to help open up access. It's kind of similar to what we talked about, this idea of partnership, and our goal is to establish those relationships with folks like yourself, with a high quality primary care provider. In some cases that may be a South County Health primary care provider, and in other cases it may be a partnered solution like through Rhode Island Primary Care Physicians Corporation. In addition, we are also working in partnership with a local group called Doctors Direct. Doctors Direct has a little bit of a different model. They are a direct payment type program. We've received some feedback from people in the community that there is a subset of the community that's interested in that type of practice. And so we have created a partnership with them. And again, our access team, as people are calling in, if we don't have access within one of our own primary care offices, we're offering a menu of different options of people in the community that we know are taking patients actively. In addition, we continue to try to recruit. We have hired a new nurse practitioner who's going to be joining us in November. We are interviewing 2 additional nurse practitioners this week, actually, who we're cautiously optimistic may be joining us in the Narragansett and Westerly locations. We've recently made an offer to a local primary care physician who would like to join South County Health. And there's a husband and wife who are finishing their family medicine residencies. The husband worked at South County Hospital prior to going to medical school, so they're from Rhode Island and they want to come home to be close to his family. So they're going to be coming out for a visit, I think it's next week. So we're working hard to try to recruit people to fill that gap and fill that need. We are partnering with groups like Rhode Island Primary Care Physician Corporation, Doctors Direct, and others, so that if we don't have the ability to offer appointments to patients, we will work with our partners to try to place them with another physician or provider. And then we're still trying to recruit and do those other things. So, and we will make sure you get a phone call.
Yeah, please don't leave without giving your phone number. We'll make sure that never like to feel like you fell into the cracks.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
My name is Lori, and I've spent most of my 60 years here in South County, and I'll try not to wax nostalgic. First, thank you all for taking the questions. Thank everyone for the questions, because this is important. I was literally in the hospital for several days when all of this exploded, and I think I would have been just as concerned had I been at home, but I sat there again experiencing the quality of care, the dedication, the passion of the staff, but there's something, I don't want to use that term because, but there's an intangible, and it may not be toxic yet, but this is the beginning. This really scared me like a run on the bank, because if it erodes and people leave, then people leave, and then it's gone. And I entreat you. I'm so glad this one person has offered to help, and I hope you find ways to reach out. For instance, at the last meeting that was also on Zoom, or it was only on YouTube, excuse me, it was said that, I think it was Mr. Robinson who said on communication, well, we inform the managers and they pass it down. My experience in being in an organization, no matter how small or large, say it firsthand. They get the same piece of paper, they get the same information, they get it right out of your own keyboard or mouth or what have you. And then lastly, I would just say to Mr. Matthews and to all of you, I encourage you to put aside how busy Brown Health may be and just go for it. please. Having one portal as a patient where it's all there, not two South County, one for Remy, nobody can see anything. How do I get it? Oh, I lost my disc. Oh, $25. That is, as we age, it addles the brain. I used to have a photographic memory. Now I can barely remember any of it because it's just so much. It's like Max Headroom came alive, right? It's our life now. So I would just say, good luck, please keep it up, and the transparency is the only way out. I mean, I know there are metrics, but what are they, and what are the rewards? Because people who are diligent, myself, I went in, I looked at the tax forms. One of the big things out in the mill with all of this is it has exploded. I'm sorry, Mr. Robinson, but the compensation. Somebody has to explain what's behind it. It's not, so that they understand it's not anything but bringing either maybe a market adjustment that made those increases over those 2 years that are publicly available on the 990s, that increase was because of X, Y, and Z. And maybe because you're a third of the size of Kent, you decided he had to have the third of the size of a pay, or whatever is behind that needs to be out there. It really does, because for your own sake, not to reveal what you're paying, but it's out there. So why not get everybody to understand it? You know, as an admin, I make the same money if I'm at RISD or here or wherever. But someone like you, it's on leadership. I understand those metrics, but just saying there are metrics doesn't quite make it understandable for those who aren't familiar.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Really appreciate it. Sir, what's your question?
Hello there. How are you? My name is Michael Bradley. I'm Chief of Orthopedics, CEO of Ortho Rhode Island, who's had a relationship with the hospital for quite some time, just to give you some background. I actually did love the first 30 minutes that Anitra and Tom got to tell. Most of the Tom stuff I already knew, and it was pretty dismal, which is promising in the Rhode Island healthcare world. We run an organization of 600 employees, about 35 doctors. All of the non-procedural doctors are a loss on our profit and loss statement, every single one of them. I have no idea how you're doing it, Noah, with 160 primary care physicians. It's a very challenging thing, and you're doing the lion's share of the work. We're going to keep all those doctors because it's important to provide those service lines no matter what. And so I think some of those difficult decisions are being made here. You know, it's funny. If you came here with open mind, then I thought you probably got a lot out of tonight. If you came here with an axe to grind, or every time somebody said something, you shook your head no, or I'm not sure you got as much out of tonight as you could have, because there was a lot of good stuff. So my question is not to you. It's actually to the room, and to say, are we ready to move on? We have everybody in the room that loves South County Hospital. Can we forget about it? Because whether I can tell you, the Aaron Weisboards of the world, the Steve Ferrers of the world, the Jamie Smythes, the Angela Tabors, still love the hospital. They still love the hospital. So, and they would not want the community to think poorly. So Carol, take me with you door to door, and I'll tell you that Anitra told me there's no quality problem with the hospital. So that's what I would be telling people. I would be telling them there's not a quality problem at the hospital. And I can guarantee in orthopedics there's not a quality problem at the hospital. So my question, not to you, is are we ready to make it better? Like, let's just do it together.
Great question.
Thank you.
No problem.
It took me so long to stand up because I do not like public speaking. However, to that, it was nice to hear from Dr. Bradley to try and promote, certainly, but my name is Anne Marie McGarty. I was a dedicated employee for 17 years. Absolutely love South County, love it. Love the hospital. My husband's life was saved there on several occasions. The nursing staff that were my superiors at the time of his illness met me in the ICU and said, you need to send him north. My husband refused. He felt like it's home there, they've taken care of him and whatnot. So to have to share anything but positive is very painful for me. It's really a heartbreaking situation, and I just want to say that I have heard from some of the employees that I'm still in touch with or that I ran into in the very small, close-knit community that we live in, that there is unfortunately a fear of retaliation, and that a lot of people are just keeping their heads down and getting their work done and continuing to work hard, which is why the quality hasn't been impacted and all of the markers have not been impacted. I just want to know, after sitting through the meeting, and it's great to have these opportunities, but we heard a lot of questions asked, and I really don't feel as though the questions were directly answered. I felt like there was a little bit of a circuitous fashion in the answers. We can't be here all night answering, and I'm sure you tried to limit your answers, whatever the case. But it was difficult to see Dr. Farrell, who's been a highly dedicated and respected doctor, doubted. His word doubted. That was very difficult. He was in the midst of the whole thing. But just wondering how do we get the faith restored so we can continue to move forward as a community and know that the information that we're getting from all of you, like some of the information that was provided is great, but a couple of the dates that were attached to the information were doubtful compared to what I've heard in previous situations. So how is the faith going to be restored with the community so concerned? And we are not the cause of the misinformation. We are tight-knit. We want success. We want to be able to continue to use South County Hospital. And I hope this happens. I hope you can make it happen. And thank you for your work, because I know it's not easy.
Thank you so much for that question, for that statement.
Go ahead, Anitra.
I just wanted to respond to the dates. The information that we shared relative to quality, that's publicly reported data. It's the most recent data that we have. And in some cases, it may be lagging. I can tell you that all of this data and all of these metrics, it's still the same administration. But we will be transparent with that information. You can go and you can fact check it. I understand that you're getting feedback from maybe current or former employees. We are always open to listen. I feel like we're very present with the staff, with the leadership team, and I'm happy to make myself available for any feedback you have for me directly. But I think there's a certain group who has put a narrative and does not speak for the majority at the hospital. So I'm going to have to respectfully disagree.
We've come to the end of our time together. First things first, I want to thank you for the privilege of learning while I was moderating. So I'm very appreciative of that. I'm going to turn it over to Joe right now to just give us some closing remarks.
We're going to end the way we started. Thank you for your support. Keep our feet to the fire. We're going to get this so that you're proud, we're all proud, and we're all supportive of the system. There will be change. Change is hard, but let's try and do it together. Thank you. Good night.